Welcome to day 90. We've got Judges chapters 9 to 10, have Psalm 49, and we have 1 Corinthians 16, which is the last chapter of 1 Corinthians. So in Judges, we have Abimelech, who is a son of Gideon, but by a different person. Gideon evidently had a whole lot of wives. And Abimelech was one of the last sons of Gideon. And after Gideon's death, his first 70 sons were the judges who were ruling the people of Israel. But Abimelech manages to kill them all except one who managed to get away, and he got himself crowned king. Now, we know this is the book of Judges. This is not the book of Kings. And God was not wanting kings. Gideon didn't want kings for Israel, but Abimelech did this. Jotham, the only surviving son, managed to run away, and he came out and spoke against the king. And we have 3 years of chaos and mayhem, violence on top of violence. And eventually Abimelech gets killed, and we get a judge again, and we have a holy time period of quiet. Tola is the next judge. He rules for 23 years. Then Jair rules for 22 years, and these are good, faithful years for Israel. And then they turn to their neighbors' evil gods again, and then they turn back to God, and we start the whole cycle all over again. In Psalm 49, verses 7 to 9 really stood out to me today as I was reading this. Now, Lectio Divina is a spiritual practice where you're reading through the Bible and you pay attention to the things that stand out to you. Sometimes it's a single word, sometimes it's a sentence, sometimes it's a verse. For me today, this stuck out to me because there's a lot of people in our society right now that tells people who are struggling that they need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. If they're depressed, they should snap out of it. If they don't have a job, they should simply go get a job. If they are poor, they should save their money and just straighten out their lives. And the psalmist here is really clear that there is no such thing as pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. The cost of rescue is beyond our means. We waste away when we live for ourselves. God is our only hope and source of life. This is hard. I mean, we live in a country that is so individualistic, and we believe that everyone should take care of themselves and take care of their families and shouldn't depend on anyone else. But even in our frontier days, people had to go into town to get supplies. There was never a time when one person could provide everything for themselves. This is a myth. And the Bible's really clear. We are here to live together under the sovereignty of God, with the power of God bringing life and light into our lives. And so I think we have to really question this narrative that we often get from American culture, that we need to be taking care of ourselves and that we need to tell other people to take care of ourselves. And I think we really have to look long and hard at God's economy of sharing with each other, of supporting each other, of living in community so that all can thrive together. In our last chapter of 1 Corinthians, chapter 16, Paul actually is kind of living this out because he starts off by asking for offerings. He is collecting offerings from the different churches that he started that have more resources, the wealthier churches, and sharing them with the communities that have fewer resources. And so from the very earliest days, even before Venmo and PayPal and a regular mail service, the churches were collecting money and sending them to other countries to help other believers in Christ. So Paul has a message here that we are to honor and support the people doing God's work. And that means sharing some of our financial resources and time resources to make God's work happen. In the ending, Paul is talking about people coming to visit people and staying connected with people. And I think there's a beautiful thing here about how we see that the early church visited each other, they wrote to each other, they supported each other, they were building community. This was not just about getting a personal ticket into heaven, about personal salvation, of making oneself right with God, but this is about living together in Jesus. I mean, Jesus gathered 12 core disciples, but he had like 70 people that were with him all the time through the Gospels, through his teaching. Jesus was always about bringing people together. It wasn't about just one by one saving people. And once again, as I pointed out in Psalm 49, this can be a really hard message for us as Americans. We are so individualistic that frequently we are suspicious of efforts to build community. Our debate over the role of public health services since the pandemic is one area where we are struggling to figure out what is the limits of individual freedom and what are the limits of community support for each other. This is an ongoing debate, and my guess is we all have different opinions on it. But it is clear that Paul is bringing a community of believers together through his letters. And he's trying to keep people connected. He's trying to encourage people. And he's trying to help people to continue to walk daily on a journey with Jesus. So good luck encouraging and supporting people this day. And we'll see you next time.